Hello, today I'd like to discuss the question of what good is philosophy, and I've been on the Continuum Hypothesis is True channel. I've been discussing a lot about mathematics and philosophy. I've decided to stay clear of most other subjects, particularly politics, religion, and even science to a greater degree than I thought I would. I believe that politics, religion, and science are necessary. I don't believe that you can exclude any one of these areas from human existence because we are wired, biologically wired, really for all three. However, in all three domains, there is the problem of, well, in all three domains, there are some philosophical problems that arise that I think that only philosophy can really address. And one of those philosophical problems that arises is the question of power. Let me explain. Why is it, the question I pose here today is, why is it that philosophy is vital? Why is it that philosophy, and let's say the liberal arts part of mathematics, meaning the part of mathematics that isn't necessarily so bound up with physics, or bound up with engineering, bound up with chemistry, but the part of, or even statistics, let's say, but that part of mathematics that's more of set theory, that's more of a liberal art that may or may not necessarily correspond to physical reality. In fact, there are quantum physicists who will deny mathematical Platonism. And so the question is, why are these things important? Why not just have science? Or some of you might want to just have religion, and some of you maybe are just interested in politics. Why is it that the questions of logic, the questions of argumentation are important? Now, I don't speak against science. Quite the contrary, I'm very interested in science. I don't speak against religion. Quite the contrary, I believe that humanity is wired to be fundamentally religious. And I don't speak against politics because I know that the anarchists of the left and the libertarians of the right might dream of a world of anti-politics, but I don't see that as being realistic, personally. I mean, I believe some form of government will be with us for all the time that we are biological human beings. So here's where science, religion, and politics will all break down, and history and a lot of other fields, if they don't have philosophy to ask vital questions and to demand logical thinking, is that they will all break down into dominance hierarchies where one person's word is accepted as law. Now, you might argue, well, wait a second, science can't do that. Science is based on empiricism. Well, I remember that there was I haven't read all that much Quine on my own because I just haven't really read him much as a philosopher. But he was quoted in a lecture series as stating that really truth boils down to what is discovered empirically. Well, whether there is or isn't an absolute truth, it's not really important according to Quine. Truth is, for our purposes, what can be boiled down to an empirical observation. And then what's built on empirical observations with ever more empirical observations. Now, we got into a lot of interesting things about language, a lot of interesting spin-offs on the questions that Wittgenstein asked, and that I think was very interesting. But the bottom line is it really boiled down to, with a lot of the scientific philosophers and a lot of the positivists, what we can know based on empirical observations. So far, I can respect, at least I can respect that there is a scope for that worldview. But the problem is, then the lecture was quoted as stating, once a scientist reports to his scientific team leader, this is the way it is, and this is the way it is. Okay, that stops me right there. Because what you're basically saying now is that once a scientific leader makes a determination, or once a group of scientists peer reviewing something makes a determination, that is then our truth that we go with. There are no rival truth claims. There are no, and according to Quine, there really are no different cultural models that we can discuss. There is no, he made it very clear that there is no indigenous understanding of things. There is no framework outside of our Western scientific method by which we can understand anything. And this is really something that was asserted more than it was really proven. Okay, well, the bottom line is indigenous man has been observing nature for hundreds of thousands of years. We were all indigenous man at one point. Native Americans, when we came to this continent, taught us how to grow certain crops. So I'm very loath to say that we can make grand pontifications about what their worldview must or must not have been based on our understanding of language. So when there's the question of what does the word rabbit mean, or let's say there's a word in some language and they point to a rabbit, and well, do they mean a rabbit or do they mean category of rabbits? What's their meaning? To posit, as a lot of the scientific empiricists do, that that's really meaningless is a fundamentally anti-philosophical question. No, it matters what that person means when they say a rabbit. Any anthropologist will tell you that when they point to the rabbit, they can mean a variety of different cultural meanings. They can mean a variety of different things. And that actually has a scientific application to it. There may be valid empirical observations that come from understanding, or valid knowledge that will come from their understanding of what rabbit means, or their understanding of what a given plant means, or the significance of that plant. Now, you might have to dwell among them and ask them, and to ask their elders and understand that, but it is impossible to do as the modernists wanted to do, and that is take culture completely out of the equation. I would say that opened the doorway to the postmodernists, to Feyerabend, and to the Lacan, the various postmodernists and those who say that Western science is just one possible way among knowing. That opened the doorway to them going completely to the other extreme, which I also believe is unhealthy. I think that we need science, but we need philosophy to ask the right questions to make sure that science remains scientific by being objective and not overloading itself with Western cultural assumptions. Now, as for religion, I believe that religion needs philosophy to ask the right questions so that it does not become authoritarian. And proper metaphysics to me is about your experience of the divine, your experience of the absolute infinite. Proper metaphysics is not about just doctrines and dogmas. And so when there is a doctrine and a dogma, you need to believe this. I believe it's the role of philosophy to ask the questions that then allow the layman or the layperson access to the truth, not simply the clergy. Well, politics, I mean, forget it. I mean, our entire notions of freedom are based on philosophers or people of the thinkers of the 18th century, 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries asking certain vital questions. So in summation, I believe that philosophy is necessary as a leveler. Philosophy is necessary to level out hierarchies to where it isn't a matter of the apex of the hierarchy speaking and creating truth in some kind of relativistic sense, where subscribing to a truth claim means you are now part of a community. Now, such a notion of truth also exists in philosophical circles, and that's where philosophy ceases to be philosophy truly spoken. So I would, of course, add academia and add the university to that list of institutions that can become a top-down hierarchy. For instance, some guy on YouTube has no business talking about philosophy, they might say, in response to this video. To which I would say, philosophy in and of itself exists as a set of questions and a set of attempts at an answer to those questions that are attempts to be objective, and that therefore should be respected from whatever corner they come from, and should be in essence, that there really should be no vertical or pyramidical top-down hierarchy when it comes to the truth. You and I have every right to come to the truth. You and I have every right to try to derive the truth. That's the essence of what freedom is the ability of the individual to come to the truth themselves. It's the essence of the Enlightenment. Within Protestantism would be the essence of the Reformation, but it's also the essence of mystical traditions. It's the essence of any tradition, Judaism, any Buddhism, any tradition that values questioning and a process of reaching enlightenment. Anyways, I've reached the end of my time. I hope you have some sense and appreciation of the value of philosophy. Thank you.